Welcome to Commsverse, everybody. This session is called Scalable Modern Teamwork Model in Teams User Adoption, and it's presented by Carolina Ketakari. Hopefully I've presented done your name correctly there. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. And perfect job with Carolina, and it's Ketakari, the last name.
Okay, great.
Cool. So welcome everyone to Commsverse. I hope you'd enjoy the first couple of sessions, and now it's time to hear more about the Scalable Modern Teamwork Model in Teams User Adoption. And my name is Carolina Ketakari, and let's begin. But first of all, thank you for all of our sponsors. And I really hope if you have time, go and take a look in their booth in Teams, and also take part in other discussion teams as well. There already is quite an interesting questions and answers in the adoption area, adoption channel, so please go and check that out. Just a few words about me and myself before we get going. So my name is Carolina Ketakari, and I'm a Microsoft MVP and a Teams user adoption and modern workplace consultant from Finland. And I like to think that my mission is to help organizations to develop their teamwork and internal communications with the help of Teams and other Office 365 tools. I'm also quite active in LinkedIn and in Twitter, so if you want to, you can add me as a contact in there as well. But that's enough about me. Let's get to business. So when I was thinking about this topic or this title for my presentation, I really don't know what I was thinking about. So maybe I would first want to go through this title so we all are in the same level. So first of all, scalable. I think for me, it means that it doesn't matter whether you are a 500 people organization or if you are a 5,000 people organization. And it doesn't matter if you are a bank or a manufacturer company or a government site. This model is suitable for pretty much all sizes, all industries around the world. And modern, from me, means that working with the old ways, with the new tools, it really doesn't change anything. So we want to work with modern ways, with our new modern tools as well. And teamwork is actually one of my favorite words, because I think at the moment, the work is shifting from solo work to teamwork. And as we all know, teamwork, especially in teams, makes the dream work. And the fourth word is a model. So this is a model. You can take the best bits and throw away the rest. And you can modify it to suit your own needs and suit your organizational needs. Okay, then I'm not sure if I really need to explain what Teams is. I hope you all know what Teams is, and we all, of course, love Teams. So that's a nice thing. But user adoption may not be that clear. And I have various different explanations for user adoption. But for this presentation, I summarize it in this way. When we are talking about traditional technical trainings, you answer to the question how. But with user adoption, and also with this teamwork workshop model, you also answer to the question why. And now I hope we all know what my session title means and what are we going to do here today. So this 45 minutes is divided in 3 or maybe in 4 parts. First, I will tell you a bit of why I think this is important. So why should we consider having this kind of teamwork development model in our organization on the top of all the normal technical training activities, all the other normal user adoption activities? So now I'll tell you how I've done this, because this is actually a model that's based on my real life customer cases I've done in the last couple of years. And these are like the best parts of those cases. But once again, just feel free to modify this to your own needs. And I have the super cool demo for you as well. And I hope the demo shows you in practice what this workshop model really could mean in practice. And in the end, I'll summarize this session with a couple of learnings from my customer projects. So I really hope this session and this becoming 40 minutes will be interesting and insightful to you all. So let's get going. First, we will talk about a bit why this is important. So if we want to develop teamwork in our organization, I think we have to engage our teams to be excited about it, and teams commit to the change. So why not empower your teams to do the development work themselves, of course, within some common organization-wide guidelines. I think the important realization here is that an organization or a team can only change internally. So there is no like external power or no consultant who can achieve anything in the organization if the employees themselves don't need to see for change. And I think that's why this model is so powerful, because actually it gives the responsibility to the team themselves, and on the way makes the team committed to the new rules. The second point, why this is important and why I think it really works, is that teams are the best experts in their own jobs. Again, me as a consultant, I'm an expert in modern knowledge work, and I'm expert in teams, but I know next to nothing about how sales team in grocery shop works, or for example, a construction site. How does a team in construction site work? So the team themselves know what tools they use at the moment, what are the challenges in communication, collaboration, and the team is the best expert in their own job. And usually, when we think about a user adoption project, we think about technical trainings, of course. But the thing with technical trainings for me is that they don't tell the employee what's in it for me. Why should I change my habits? Why should our team work differently from now on? And this thumbs up in here is actually, it's a great example, because in technical trainings, you can teach that if you hover over a post in Teams, you can use reactions and click like give thumbs up. But what does it actually mean? So if you give a thumbs up to a post, does it mean you agree with the post? Or have you done the task that the post asked you to do? Or just do you want to like support the post and create more conversation? So alongside with the technical trainings, you also need training on how to use Teams and how to do teamwork in Teams. And that's what my session is all about. Okay, so now we all are hopefully in the same page why this is important. So next, let me tell you how I've done this in my customer projects by far. So this is the summary of the modern teamwork workshop model flowchart with the super pretty nice Commsverse colors. And in the next slides, I will go deeper into each section in here. So first, we need to define some basic guidelines and rules that are the same for everyone in the organization. So we want to work together as a company as well. And that's why it's all of our teams need some kind of common rules to follow. Then we'll create a ready-made teamwork workshop agenda, ready-made materials, and basically everything you may need when you're planning and having a workshop. And my practical demo is about this part of the process. Then you gather and train your trainers. So the persons who will facilitate your teamwork development workshops. And then your awesome trainers go into their own teams and into their own units and start developing teamwork with those ready-made models you've given to them. And the goals of these workshops simply is to create a common agreement how my team is going to modernize my teamwork, our teamwork, and utilize teams in the future. So it's not rocket science, it's just teamwork. Of course, you need to support your trainer squad, and we need some feedback model. We need some follow-up model and support channels. And of course, we need to be awake and update our original workshop model and materials if needed. But basically, this is it. So instead of you as a consultant or as an internal project manager having tens or hundreds of workshops, give the power to your teams and utilize their expertise and help them to develop their teamwork themselves. I think this leads to commitment, which leads to change. And then in the end, you'll have hundreds of teams who are committed to using Teams and also committed to the company guidelines. At least in theory, let's say that. Okay, so first of all, define the company guidelines. We want to establish some kind of common rules for all the teams. They can be a bit different, for example, if you have different units or different countries, but we're still talking about some company-wide guidelines that the teams themselves cannot make an exceptions of. And you can do this as a minimum viable product rulebook that the teams can then continue on filling with their own materials. And in the company guidelines, usually you should answer to the few basic questions the employee will ask all the time. So what are the official company communication and collaboration tools? What are the basic principles of how we are going to use those? And for example, one very common thing in here is that teams at the moment are using WhatsApp for communication because WhatsApp is easy, it's super simple. And in these company guidelines, you really need to clearly tell that WhatsApp is not an option anymore, and the company replacement for WhatsApp is Teams. So that could be one very clear company guideline. And also you could tell about the most important deadlines. So for example, if you're moving from network storage drives to SharePoint online, tell when the documents have to be moved. And of course, you should answer to why we are doing this. For example, why you should utilize Teams instead of WhatsApp. Maybe it's for the safety, maybe it's for the one environment, maybe it's for the single login, or whatever you want to answer to the why. But of course, the why and how go hand in hand. So offer also technical trainings. You can use videos. You can use all those, for example, free Microsoft Learning resources, etc. But I think it's important to notice that the teamwork workshops actually are not the place for technical trainings. So employees should already have the basic knowledge of Teams before they sit down and think about how they're going to utilize Teams in their teamwork. So first, technical trainings, and then these teamwork workshops. Cool. Now we have our company guidelines, and then we are going to create the workshop agenda and the materials. And maybe you could think about the agenda and the materials as a box of Lego pieces, or maybe these balls of yarn. And then you offer the materials, you offer some instructions, but teams take the materials and make their own socks, or make their own Lego buildings, or whatever. Of course, you can have, and maybe you should also have, some materials or some agenda that you want everyone to go through the same way. And maybe then some pieces the teams can modify themselves so that it suits the best for them. But one thing I've really learned from here is that you need to make it super easy. Soon, we are going to talk about the trainers. And in this case, actually, the trainers usually are not in any way experts in, for example, facilitating workshops. So the easier you can make it for them, the more likely they are to succeed. So super simple agenda, super simple materials, everything is offered ready for the trainers. And I really recommend having a teamwork workshop team in Teams. It can be aimed for the trainers, and there you can offer support. You can have Teams meetings, Teams trainings, and also you can utilize the team site, or you can also create a separate communication site where you store all the workshop materials, etc. And we are going to take a look at the SharePoint site just in a minute. Okay, so now we have everything ready. We have the company guidelines, so the common rules, and we have all the workshop materials. So now all we need is the trainers. So the first question here actually is that who are the trainers? So usually in my projects, we have used managers or supervisors or champions from the change agent network. And I think it also depends a bit on your own organization, because if you are a, let's say, very hierarchical organization, a manager could be the best choice. And also, I think according to many studies, but for example, according to ProSci studies, the supervisor actually has a tremendous effect when it comes to having a change in the organization or changing something in the teamwork life. So a manager actually can be a good alternative. The problem with managers and supervisors are that mostly they are super busy. So they maybe don't have time to attend the trainings and then have those workshops themselves. But basically, I think the trainer can be anyone who is interested. So it can be just a normal employee. But I think they need to be committed to this because it takes some time. They have to attend to the trainings and they have to make sure that they give those workshops after they trainings. So if the trainer is just a normal team member, so make sure the manager or supervisor agrees on that. Okay, so what should we actually train for the trainers? And I think in here, maybe the most important point is to get everyone on the same level with what we want to achieve with these workshops and what are the company guidelines that are not debatable. And I think it's also important to remember, as I said earlier, so the trainers may not be experts in facilitating workshops. So they may have never given a single workshop in their lives before. So train also facilitation skills. For example, how you can include people, what are the best practices for having a discussion in a workshop, and so on. And I think you can train the trainers any way you like. I myself, I prefer always face-to-face workshops, but especially nowadays, as you can all see me via the video, face-to-face is pretty much impossible to do. So you can also do Teams meetings as well. It works fine. But one pro tip in here, I'll tell you, is to record a short videos about the most important key points. What are the workshop goals? Where do I find the materials? And so on. But it's also as important to remember that alongside with the videos, offer at least some kind of Teams calls or support group, because you have to make sure that the trainers actually understand what this is all about. So what our goal with this workshop are. Cool. So awesome. We have our trainers, we have trained them, and we have let those loose. So the important part in here is to have a goal in mind all the time, because otherwise it's just a random meeting with a random discussion. And in my projects, I have really learned that this can be a challenge if the facilitator or the trainer is a champion or just a normal team member. So that's why we also want to train the trainers with some facilitation skills. And you also want to achieve the goal together as a team. And I really suggest that most of the team members should attend to the workshop. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you have only half of your team in a teamwork workshop, there is no way you can actually create a common agreement for everyone. So if you can't get everyone to attend at the same time, maybe you can try some kind of different method, or maybe you can have maybe 2 workshops for your team. But at the simplest, you could maybe discuss topics like how, as a team, are we going to use Teams and do teamwork in Teams? So when I have to be available on Teams, how often do I need to read new messages in Teams? What does the like, so what does the thumbs up mean? And you can agree on topics like, for example, everyone will upload Teams on their mobile phones and check out their notification settings by the end of next week. Or you can, for example, agree on everyone will move their teamwork-related documents from my own computer to team channels by the end of next month. And make sure that everyone are heard, but also make sure the discussion won't get sidetracked, because you have the company guidelines, and that's your path you have to follow anyway. And depending on your workshop, you can use post-it notes, you can use PowerPoint, whiteboard, anything you want to discuss about. And of course, if you have a workshop online, you can use the raise hand cool function you have there in Teams at the moment. And in the end of the workshop, it's important to write down the agreement. So it can once again be done in many different ways. But one easy example we have done in most of my projects is that we have some kind of PowerPoint template the teams can modify. So maybe the team can then add the PowerPoint as a tab in their Teams, or they can also print it out, like in very old-fashioned way, and they frame it on their office wall. It works as well. But actually, one pretty interesting point and pro tip in here is that sometimes you should also think about the word workshop, because in one of my customers, actually we ended up calling these workshops discussions. So we had teamwork discussions, because the workshop it seemed to be too official. It was too consultant-like term. So once again, take this model and modify to your own needs. Cool. So the last part is to remember that your work as a consultant or that your work as a project manager doesn't end after you've trained all of your trainers and let them have those workshops themselves. Because one thing I've actually really learned from my projects is that automate as much as you can from these processes. So you can automate the training invitations, you can automate feedback forms, reports, because if you think about it, even if you are a, for example, small organization with just 500 employees, so you have maybe 10 teams, you have maybe 20 projects, that's easily a 40 to 50 workshops you need to get the big picture of. So not to even mention if you have a large company with thousands of employees, you have thousands of teams. So utilize the Power Platform to automate your processes that are relatable to this teamwork workshop model. And then, of course, don't let the trainers wander out there in the dark alone. Just the normal trainings, I think they won't be enough for the trainers, especially if most of the trainers are just normal team members. So offer active support. For example, you can utilize the team in Teams, as I mentioned. You can have maybe weekly Teams calls, bi-weekly Teams meetings. You can ask feedback, and remember also to act according to the feedback. So if the trainers are saying that this part of the workshop doesn't work, or this part of the agenda, it's impossible to do. So then you maybe want to think about again your agenda and maybe do some changes so that it suits better for the teams in the future. And one thing I actually want to emphasize in here is to celebrate the success, because we often, at least here in Finland, we are so modest, we tend to forget to celebrate our successes. So if some of the trainers have had an awesome workshop, tell it to everyone. So encourage the trainers to write their story to the team, or you can use praise, or maybe you can even write a piece of news to your intranet about it. So let the best practices spread also, because I think many of your teams, many of your projects may have some kind of similar best practices, and they can utilize those from each other. And I think this was a really nice one of my customer projects. In one team, they had made this totally own version of the workshop materials. They had made their own version of the teamwork agreement. They were like PowerPoints, and then they posted those materials to the team, to everyone to see. So I think it was awesome. It was also super brave for them to post those materials for everyone to see. And in that way, we can also encourage the trainers or teams who maybe they are a bit uncertain, maybe they are even a bit struggling with this workshop idea, but especially in celebrating successes, sharing really is caring. Cool. So now we've gone through some theory about this, and then I would like to show you a demo. So the demo in here is actually a visualization of the SharePoint site you could utilize. And the idea is that you have the team for your trainers, and then you could embed the SharePoint site to your team, where the trainers can find all the materials and all the instructions for their workshops. So let's take a look at those. Cool. Now I have to stand up, so I will see my actually my materials in here. So now you'll see my modern workshop, teamwork workshops SharePoint page in here. Maybe I can also put it a bit bigger. So in here, we have a few different kinds of articles. We have a few different kinds of pieces of information. So you could utilize, for example, what are modern teamwork workshops? So here you can have all the agendas. Here you can have all the instructions, all the materials. You could also, for example, have ready-made forms. So if you are interested in having a workshop, you can sign up in here. Or here you could also have some kind of information about what does it mean? What does it take? How much it takes your time? What does it, when should you actually have this workshop? Because as I said in the beginning, you should always first go through the basic technical trainings in Teams, and then have this teamwork workshop. Then you could also have some facilitating tips. So you could, for example, have links to some instruction sites. You can have links to videos, or to some other best practices you've gotten from other trainers. And also one thing that's actually super important is that you should have some kind of section for managers or supervisors, even if the managers are not the trainers who will have these workshops. The managers need to be aware what we are going to do in these workshops. So what's in it for me as a manager, and how could I, for example, as a manager, lead my team better with the help of Teams? And then you can have some kind of inspirational quotes and Lego pieces and tell some customer cases or stories about how teamwork makes the dream work. Also, you can utilize a lot more of these just out of the box SharePoint functionalities. So for example, here we can have our training calendar. So you can notify about the upcoming trainings, facilitator workshops, feedback processes, etc. And then you could also maybe implement some simple flows or use power-ups so the trainers can, for example, attend the trainings via this site. And of course, you can utilize links to external resources, links to feedback forums, etc. But usually these kind of sites have been pretty simple. Just maybe the calendar, maybe a few links, and then a few most important articles in here. Because people at the moment, nowadays, they have so much things they have to read. They have so much things, so many meetings they have to attend to. So keep it simple, keep it easy, so they're more likely to succeed. So let's take a look about this one page. So what are the modern teamwork workshops? And basically, this page has the idea that if you are a trainer, so if you want to have this kind of teamwork workshop for your own team, or maybe it's your neighbor team, so some kind of unit or department that does pretty much similar work than your own team. So this is the one-stop shop. You will find every single material, every invitation, every OneNote, every agenda, what you need for your workshop. So once again, make it super easy. It's just one link you can send to the trainers, and they know that via this one page, they will find everything they need to have those modern teamwork workshops. And as you can see, I have this Commsverse color theme right in here. And I actually had also a story about these dogs. I chose the dog picture in a purpose because I think, like, as teams, all dogs are different. So even if you have a ready-made model, you have these ready-made materials, you can modify to suit for all of your different dogs or teams. But here are some examples what your teamwork site could include. First of all, and this is super important. So you really need to have a solid goals for your workshop, because in some of my projects, we've done this, and some of those workshops really didn't get to the point. So if you have a very clear structure and very clear goals you want to achieve, it makes it easier for the people to follow up the agenda. Let's make it a bit bigger, so maybe you'll also see better because the text is quite small. So for example, in these demo workshops, the goals are to understand company guidelines, to create a team rulebook, and agree on the next steps. Then you can also include this discussion about what are we going to call these. So is it a workshop? Is it a discussion? It can be also like a rulebook drafting session if you want to draw and draft and plan. Then on here on the right-hand side, you can have ready-made things. For example, forms, templates. You can have the feedback form. You can have the invitation form. And then you can have these huge icons with OneNote, with all the agendas or some other planning stuff. And you can have also links to PowerPoint for the ready-made templates for the workshop, or ready-made templates for the teamwork agreement plan. And then here, so I wrote this workshop agenda directly into the page, but it could be as well in a PowerPoint form or a OneNote form. This was 1.5 hour workshop, but usually I would recommend having 2 hours or 2.5 if you can. 1.5 hours leaves very, very little time for open discussion and conversation. And I think it's pretty tight. So if you can, you should make this workshop at least 2 hours long. But if you want to take a look about what's included in the 1.5 hours, so first of all, we of course want to set the tone of the meeting. So we want to agree on the goals. So what do we want to achieve? And also we can agree on, for example, do I have to raise hand if I want to talk? How are we going to vote, etc. Then we have a discussion openly with all of our team members. But what are the current methods of communication and collaboration? So, for example, what kind of tools are we using? What kind of challenges we have with those tools, with those methods we are not at the moment doing? And if and when the trainer is a member of the team, maybe he or she already knows what kind of tools we use. Maybe they already know what kind of challenges do we have. So in that case, the trainer can already maybe compile some plan, maybe compile something ready-made material about this section, because the 20 minutes is super short time to discuss about this, and it helps if you have already something made out of where you can start discussing. And then you have the company guidelines, and as you can see, it's a bit shorter time frame. So you have a double the time to discuss about your own practices, your own challenges, and then you have only 10 minutes in here to discuss about the company guidelines. And the idea in here is that you have some ready-made SharePoint site, you have some ready-made PowerPoint where you actually have those company guidelines, hopefully in some super nice visual presentation way. And the time limit here is smaller, because actually this isn't something you need to discuss, because this is a company guideline. This is not debatable. So this is something we have to follow, whether we like it or not. And then comes the longest part, but also the most interesting part. So we should create the teamwork agreement. And once again, if you have some kind of ready-made PowerPoint template for this, it really helps the teams. I have one example in here. I will show it to you also in a minute. But usually when we are talking about the tools we are using at the moment, or we are talking about the challenges we have like tens of tools. We have tens of challenges. So the challenge in here is to prioritize and focus on maybe 3, maybe 4, maximum of 5 most important topics. So for example, we can agree on that everyone will use Teams for mobile, and everyone will go through the notification settings. And we could agree on, for example, that liking a post means that I have read the post, but I do not necessarily have acted according to the post. So these are, for example, about the topics you can discuss, you can decide on. But the team should always choose those what are the most important for themselves. And then when we have the agreement, we should vote. Because as I said, this doesn't work if we don't get the whole team to sit down together. Because the idea is to create a common agreement with the whole team, like internal agreement. And then we vote, and then it's like it's democracy. So if most of the team is in favor, so then the agreement is on, and everyone has to commit to the agreement. And then in the end, we need to reserve some time for agreeing on next steps. Because usually we have decided, for example, we are dictating our internal emails, or we are moving to Teams, and we have to decide the deadline. So from what day forward, I am not allowed to send any internal emails within my team. And maybe also we need to decide on some other deadlines, for example, about document management or stuff like that. And then here, and now it's so big, so let's make it a bit smaller. This is one example. So basically, this was just a PowerPoint page, and it has had the like a modern teamwork agreement. Together we commit to these rules, and then the teams filled out 3 sections in here, and I have 2 of those 3 sections. So the first one was open communication in Teams, and the team agreed on that they will move our discussions from emails to Teams, and they don't use chat for teamwork. And then the other part was working together. So the team agreed on that they will use, for example, discussion co-authoring with documents in Teams, and they won't store team documents in OneDrive. So this was something they all agreed on. They all voted in favor of this, and then they embedded this picture or this PowerPoint in their own teams. Awesome. I really hope you got some extra cool ideas about this demo. So now let's get back to my presentation and to my last slide, actually. So a few learnings about my customer projects. So as I said, all of this has come from my real life projects, and a few things I want to emphasize at this point. So as in every change project, you need an internal owner, and a consultant like me or a project manager, they can plan this works model. We can train the trainers, but as a consultant, I can't run this whole thing alone. So be sure you have an active internal owner who has time and resources to run this network. And also, sadly, but truthfully, this is not a fast track to happiness. This takes time, and it can be fairly simple to set up the basic company guidelines and workshop materials, but the support, feedback, training, updating the model, that's time consuming. And for example, when we are talking about this modeling to spread to every team in the whole organization, we are talking about months, maybe even years if you have a super large organization. But one thing, I'm super happy and proud about this, because many of the trainers in my own customer projects, they have been just normal team members and or maybe champions, and they've had no facilitator background, they have had no technical background, and to see those normal team members gain so much new knowledge, and to see them grow as a trainer and even as a teamwork developer, I think that's huge. And that also may even means like some totally new work opportunities for them via this process and this growth. And last but not least, I think it really works. It's not the easiest way. It's not the fastest way. But if you want teams who are committed to modern knowledge work, and if you want teams who want to change their teamwork for the better, I think this model is really something you could and should try out. Awesome. Hey, thank you for everyone for sitting down here with me in 45 minutes. And please give me feedback. The link is in there, and I think it's also in the Q&A. And next we have this posters and breakout room. If you have any questions, if you want to discuss about this topic, so please feel free to join the breakout room, and maybe we'll see you in there in a minute. But I hope you all have a super nice day.
Caroline, I've just got a question before we move over to the breakout room.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you use movies in your adoption process? If yes, what's the best duration based on your experience?
Movies, so videos.
Videos, yes.
Yeah, we do at some point, but the problem with videos is that employees are usually so busy that they don't have time to watch videos unless they are super, super short. And I'm talking like under 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I think that's the only question we have. So as Carolina said, if you want to join her in the breakout room, I've just posted the announcement. Please do so, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.